Hi, this is Brenda and Elaine.
Welcome to our After the Show episode, where we go deeper into what we learned from our conversations with guests.
I am so glad we had Kathleen on the podcast because there's so much to learn from her. She's so accomplished and just wonderful, but also because I think the job that she does, the work that she does with the medical students and residents is so important and will help the next generation of doctors be able to bring their whole selves to their work and their empathy and connection with the patients. I
Which
think
is
it's
what we've
great.
been hearing from our guests, that's one of the big missing pieces about how Black women can feel cared for. It's being listened to. And I think doctors do have a lot on their plates. And if they can get some training and reminding at least a little bit about, how important that piece of the puzzle is, I think it's going to be great for everybody. So I'm so glad that she's doing that work. And she's saying it's a growing field within medical schools. So I'm very happy to hear all of that.
Yeah, and also that, when you think about like medical school is hard, right? The way we've got it set up to train doctors is very challenging for them personally. And then if you've got to day in and day out give people bad news about their health or a scary diagnosis, that could be emotionally exhausting.
And then we sometimes forget that they actually have their own personal issues going
Right.
on in their life when she was talking about, medical students and doctors losing their own parents. As
Mhm.
patients, we go in there and expect them to be service providers, which they are, but we also have to remember that they have their own personal things going on.
So I'm glad she's there providing that mental health support. I'm glad she, as a psychologist, has her own practice because what we hear also is that Black women who want to have Black women therapists have such a hard time finding them because they're just not enough. So if you haven't listened to our episode with Dr. Kathleen Isaac, please do because these things we're talking about what she's doing in medicine and also how she serves her patient are interesting, but they're not the main point of the episode, which is how she dealt with her grief.
All that she's done professionally is even more amazing when we find out her backstory and the childhood that she had, where she lost both of her parents before age 10 and had to somehow, regain your footing. And as a child, your parents are all you know in terms of the world and teaching you what's what. And she lost that at such an early age.
And the thing that broke my heart was her talking about not having unconditional love, right? That's one of the things children really need. So feeling like I have to be perfect so I don't get kicked out. And so I can only imagine the mental stress that that must be for a 10-year-old to think that they have to be perfect.
I wonder because it's something she felt, and I think we have to realize children feel things not like adults do. So who knows if that was really the case in terms of her provider's thought process, but that's what she felt. And so as adults, we really have to be careful about how we are making children feel from their point of view. And we don't all know how to do that for sure. So there's another
Right.
challenge for
And
all
also
of us.
what we say in front of children, because one of the things she said was she, overheard the fights over who was going to take care of them after their parents died. So first there's the grief, but then there's the uncertainty. And one of the things I loved was that her big sister, who was also experiencing her own grief and uncertainty, still, advocated for, argued for herself and her siblings.
Yeah, the blessing of having siblings in those situations too is someone who you've had a shared experience with from the beginning and you can go to, and they didn't always agree on things, but at least someone who you felt like was there for you always. And that's beautiful that they still have that. But
Yeah.
I know they all had different struggles going through the process of growing up without their parents. She is interesting, and I feel like me in a lot of ways in that she, just does what she has to do to get by without sort of really figuring out what it is that you need, but just trying to make sure that everybody else has what they need.
And I see that in both of you, and I use the word stoic, like, you're just gonna navigate what needs to be navigated, without a lot of performance of emotion, for lack of a better word. Um, but when she said she doesn't recall having cried about her mother or her father's death, and everybody grieves differently, everybody needs to grieve in different ways, but for me, crying is such a release, and it allows me to feel better and move on.
Especially at a young age, I mean, you just feel like most 9, 10-year-olds are not that in control of their emotions, so that
Right.
crying would seem natural, but, that shows a lot about her personality, but also about how she navigates those kinda emotional situations, and I feel like now she realizes that it's okay to feel and to express those feelings, but it does make me sad to see that she had to go through that, and she doesn't feel regret about anything, but I think she sees that things might have been easier, but what is really, something that I took note of is her friend's mother, who
Mm.
was really a safe haven for her. She had to wait until she got to college for that, but to see that somebody was there to actually make her feel that unconditional love that she didn't feel when she was younger, and how much she appreciated that, and how that really seemed to change her life in many ways.
And I love part of that story because it's not hard to be that for someone, to show someone that you see needs love, to show them that love. So if it's your child's friend or a neighbor or something like that, I think it's beautiful, that that woman did that for her and continues to be a part of her life.
Yeah, and I think we all sort of raise our own children in response to the things that we experienced as children ourselves, whether we felt negative or positive about those things, and we kind of craft our own experience for our children, hopefully, in a mindful way.
I'm not entirely sure everybody does. So I agree with you that we should reflect on our childhoods and then decide what kind of parent we want to be. But I still know a lot of people who are parenting. This is how I was raised. It was good enough for me. It'll be good enough for them. So I think you have to bring a level of thought to it to say, well, let me really think about what is the best way for me to parent, not let me just do what my parents did.
For sure, but I think that is one response,
Yeah.
you know?
I say that's why we have the podcast.
It's not a great response, but it is a response. So,
Be better.
we're trying to learn and teach as we go.
I also wanted to talk briefly about her aunt and uncle who took them in because taking in, I don't remember the ages, but a 10-year-old, a 16-year-old, and I can't remember the age of the other,
Really.
something in between. When you've only had one child, it's challenging, right? And so it was an adjustment for them too, but this is the moment where you have to think about, well, if I'm gonna do this thing, what is the best that I can do?
And a lot of times people are in situations where they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hard circumstances in life, and we all, are just trying not only to do our best, but to figure out what is best.
Well, it made me think about Aunt Flora and Uncle Nick. So Aunt Flora and Uncle Nick took in, 3 of Uncle Nick's nieces after their parents died. And we were much younger, but growing up, I didn't know that those 6 people weren't all their children. Like, I just thought that those were Aunt Flora and Uncle Nick's children. So they didn't make any distinction about the 3 children that were theirs and the 3 children that I think I was an adult when I realized that Brenda and Nada and Rosie were not Aunt Flora and Uncle Nick's children. And it seems silly, but they had the same last name. They all lived in the same house. I thought
Mhm.
they were siblings.
Right, and they lived as that. I mean, I think I knew that, but not because there was any difference in the way that they were treated or the way that, they were presented in our family. I mean, I've always thought that's
The model.
amazing. Knowing them, I'm not amazed that they did it. The type of people that it takes to be able to do that and to be willing to do that is I'm glad they were part of my family.
Yeah, Aunt Flora's my godmother. So
Mhm.
she's just a positive person in so many ways. She's gone now, but I just remember every time we would go to Massachusetts or we would visit them, her being a bundle of positive energy. And she was full time working, mothering 6 people. Couldn't have been
Yeah.
easy.
Knowing what we know now, it's even more.
As I always say, I was at capacity with 2. So
As with all of our guests, there's a lot of lessons in everybody's life experience. And just happy that we had the chance to talk to her and see where she is today. I'm impressed with her.
I'm impressed with her and I'm excited to see what's next for her. I feel like she's done great things, but her future is bright.
Very true.
Let us know what you learned from this guest.
If you want to support Body Wealth, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd also love it if you give us a 5-star rating and write a review letting us know what you love about the show.
The Body Wealth podcast shares personal stories to inspire you. It does not constitute medical advice. For that, we encourage you to work with a trusted healthcare provider.